Welcome back. Welcome back. Another episode of the Hawk Vision podcast, guys. Chuck Hawkins here. You know what it is. Wherever you're listening, however you're listening, I could not be more excited that you're here to spend some time with us. We are truly here designed to shorten the learning curve. Make sure you like, share, subscribe to the YouTube channel. We got a lot of things coming here, and we don't want you to miss out. It will be absolutely awesome. Now, our next guest is someone that I've had on my radar, oh my God, for months, guys. And I'm excited that we finally have a chance to connect and have her share. She's established herself not only as a powerhouse executive HR coach, but also as a trusted voice teaching individuals how to network on purpose. I have so much respect for her story, her journey, and her commitment to greatness. She has tons of kudos from HR leadership professionals as well as current and former clients. She is a business owner, speaker, visionary, and today's guest, Erika Monae. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm like, is that me? Like that introduction?
It is all you. You have earned every one of those accolades. I was
You did a
doing the
good job with that. I'm like, man, thank
thank
you so
you.
much.
Absolutely. Listen, I was doing the research, and when I tell you that it was just page after page. I was just excited. So I'm excited to have you. And we talked. I was like, you've been on the radar for a minute.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That makes my heart smile.
That's what we're here for. So as you guys can tell, I'm excited. It is not just the coffee. I've only had 2 cups today. You guys that know me know I'm at least 4, possibly 5 a day. Don't put no water or drink water and tea in the comments. I'm not drinking no tea. Now, unless I'm sick. Let's jump in. I want to value your time. You are an absolute rock star. I have to ask the first question. What prompted you to launch your own business, and where were you personally, professionally, mentally? Like, when was that moment?
Gosh, I had several moments. It wasn't like just one moment. When I graduated undergrad, I knew I was going to start my own business. But what I didn't know is that it was going to be this business.
Okay.
So that's a little bit different. And I think along my career journey, I did about 3 years in accounting and finance first, then made my transition into human resources. And when
Okay.
I made my transition into human resources, that took another maybe 7 years before I realized my groove, my passion, and how my love for leadership development is, what I really want to hone into.
Right.
And then it was like, this is what I need to do. I need to stay committed to this and start a business around this, because it was like, just do an HR consulting company. That's the go-to for like any HR professional that wants to
Right.
start their own business, right? And I noticed that I'm a bit unique in the aspect of incorporating the leadership development, but yet I also approach anything and everything that I do in HR from a humility, authenticity type of standpoint.
Yes.
And I've always spoke from my heart to the heart of others. And that's how I coach. That's how I lead in HR. And I think it's important to be a human centered type of organization and leader. So I've incorporated all of that. And so all in all, I was like, I just need to do this now. So I started my business in 2019
Okay.
and was like, and I was still working in corporate America. And my plan
I
was
love
to
it.
work in corporate America for like 5 years before I made that jump to say, I'm a full blown entrepreneur. I am taking everything in. And that was the plan. And then, as we all know, in 2020, uh,
Yes.
Rona had a different story for all of us. So I was no longer in corporate America when
Okay.
Rona decided to arrive and take over everyone's life. And so then I was in a position where I had to decide, am I going to continue to be on the look for employment, or am I going to make this a priority,
Mhm.
meaning my business a priority? Because again, I just wanted to work for 5 years in corporate America before
Right.
launching. And so after a bunch of prayer, and meditation, and really taking into consideration of the fact that the gifts and talents that I have, God gave me all of this. So I decided to make that a priority. It's not to say if an opportunity were to come along that fits within my life that I won't, entertain it or take it. But I must make what it is that he's giving me a priority. So that
I
is
love
how
it.
I'm landed in the space of I'm a full-time entrepreneur unexpectedly.
I
So
love
I
it.
wanted to be an entrepreneur, but just jumped into the whole full-time helmet of it.
Right. I think it's important to always be able to connect those dots, right? Because we always have this plan of, timing. For entrepreneurs and dream chasers alike, we love to shorten the learning curve, but we always have this plan involving timing that we're beholden to, right? We're going to launch on this day, and in 9 months we should be here. And sometimes life changes those plans. What kind of foundation did you have that enabled you to go ahead and fall into that launch and embrace it versus, kind of stuttering through it and saying, okay, well, maybe I'll stay in the job just a little bit longer because they're letting me work from home, with Rona going on. How did you manage that part?
Man, I think it took a lot of really standing in my own truth on what it is that I wanted and what it is that I valued. Because that's not a common thing in the workplace where people are able to say, here are my values, here is what matters to me, and
Right.
this is what's most important. And you say that at work, and you're saying, okay, work, I'm gonna fit you in how I fit you in. And when I got, so when I got that perspective and started to do that, that helped grounded me into how I needed to move forward. I know some leaders just didn't like it because
Yeah.
they wanted you to be fully focused and committed to only them. And
Yes.
I am I'm a woman of all different types of trades. And you know how they say you got a jack of all trades. Like I find satisfaction truly in doing so many things. And
Yes.
when I got to the point in my career where people were tapping me on the shoulder to speak at conferences or even just be in attendance, be on a panel.
Yeah.
And mind you, at that point, I didn't have my own business, but
Mm.
yet I was an HR professional and still was working in corporate America. So, really getting grounded in who I am, what my values are, is what really helped the clear some things up for me so that I can move forward in the entrepreneurship.
Nice, nice. Now it's rare that you look at a person's website and you get words that actually describe them, right? So while I'm doing, some of my initial research, this is before we even had our prelim. I saw grace and authenticity, courage, respect, integrity, and I was so encouraged and excited about this episode because every single one of those words matched when we talked. How did you land on those words, and how did they help shape your entrepreneurship business practices? Jesus, that's hard to say
Yeah, I do. I follow you. I follow you, right?
fast.
Um, but I landed on those words because over a few different experiences, when it comes to integrity and respect, mutual respect, a lot of that came from, my career in
Yes,
my experience because I was in HR, so integrity is very important, it's vital.
yes,
When it comes to mutual respect, by being one of the youngest, probably HR professionals in my settings or my experience. Oftentimes, being the only Black person on the leadership team, let alone being HR, all of those things played a part in receiving that mutual respect.
right,
And when it was not given to me, that was an eye opener, regardless of my title, regardless of my credentials, regardless of what I was bringing to the table and the value I was bringing. I noticed that there is something about being young, being Black, being HR, being female, all of those
yes.
things played a part in me receiving the respect that I know that I deserve. Whether or not I actually received it, it's just one of those things where it's like, hey, my phone is ringing. I'm not sure if you can hear that,
No, no, no,
but
you're fine.
that ain't good. So, but yeah, so it was just one of those things where I was just like, that is so important. And when I realized that it was one of the things that needed to be incorporated in not only my life and my career experience, when I was given or when I was giving others that same mutual respect, I noticed a shift. So
Yeah.
it became important for that. When it comes to grace, that was just something that I learned over time too, because grace, defined, simply put, is just the favor that is undeserved, unearned. Like you do nothing to get this from anybody. So when you experience that type of grace, you allow for one, you allow the space to be vulnerable and allow the space for people to be human.
Yeah.
We forget the fact that we are human beings and we
Absolutely.
come to work equipped with this with armor and having to either defend our case in certain instances or have to be able to present ourselves in a way so that we can receive favor.
Yes.
And in fact, that we need to just show up at work as who we are,
Yeah.
period. And it's just like, well, I got my master's from such and such, and I got these credentials and blah, 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 blah. While all of that is important, that's phenomenal that people take the time to invest in their talents.
Mhm.
We cannot forget that we are human beings first.
Right.
And I'm never the one to advocate for a work-life balance ever.
No
It's you
such
have a
thing.
life,
Yeah.
right? You
There's
have
no
a
such
life.
thing. Right.
You
Absolutely.
place work in it how you see fit. And you have the power to do that. And some people don't feel like they have that power to do so. So that is where kind of these values really come from, because I was able to not only experience certain things where those values were important, or maybe those values were lacking in my
Yes.
experience, but I was also able to actually embody it and give it out and see the
Yeah.
results of that. And that is what our workplace need. It needs values that's going to create a more fair and healthier workplace. And that is what my business EMG is all about.
I couldn't agree more. And I think it's funny. I would be remiss if I didn't mention, obviously we have the HR background um, in comparison. What's my word I want to use? We have that in common. I get excited when I do these interviews, and sometimes my words jump around, but we have that in common. And it's interesting that you mentioned 2020 kind of changed the game for a lot of people, but being the only African American in leadership, in HR, and at the table, a lot of companies decided this was the rah rah time to address, all of the things that we saw going on in the summer of last year. Was there a seminal moment where you were sitting at, and please don't give any names because we don't have an insurance bucket just yet, but but please, was there a seminal moment where you were like, you know what, if you had this training that I offer for my business, we wouldn't even be having this conversation?
Yeah.
She's like, yeah, but you said not to say no names, so I can't.
Right. It's not like, yes, simply put, yep. Answering your
Yeah,
question, yes. And honestly, it's not even just a training.
yeah,
It's really having the conversation so that there's a safe place to have these conversations instead of this being a check in the box type of approach to things,
okay,
such as like a training.
yes,
Being able to, you can utilize training to push forward the agenda, but the agenda needs to be more than just the moment in
yeah,
time. It needs to be a movement. It needs to be an ongoing effort to ensure that people are incorporating or being inclusive in the workplace, making sure that all of your practices, not just your hiring, not just in HR, that HR professionals aren't the only ones talking about people of color, talking about
yes,
hiring a diverse workforce, making sure that there are more advocates in the workplace for women. So those sorts of things should be a part of the conversation, should be normal. but it's not normalized. So
Right.
we should have been already having these conversations and we weren't. And then people are like, oh, let's have this training. Let's make sure we make these statements. Let's make sure we just give money. Let's make sure. So all of these things are
Yes.
happening. But yet here we are, what is it, like 7, 8 months later?
Right.
Um, and yet we are still where
Still
we
having.
are. You know what I
I
mean? So it's,
yeah.
and don't get me wrong, especially when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion, it's not a check in the box. It's a movement. It's not,
Yes.
it's a complete strategy. It needs to be intertwined in every practice and procedure that you do in your organization.
Right.
But that takes time to implement. So I get that. It's not going to be an overnight sort of,
Absolutely.
recovery. You know what
Absolutely.
I mean?
I
That's
think it
just
was
not going
one
to
of the
happen.
I think it was one of the hardest times for African Americans in leadership, because it was often, not only did we have the meeting, right, but then we had the meeting after the meeting where it's, was that okay, right? Did we check all the boxes? Did we do good, right? And then there's no follow up, and then we're left to be like, okay, great job, great start, yay, but where do
Great
we go from
start.
here? Exactly, great start. I want to shift a little bit because we could spend forever right there. You
Yeah.
have um, tons of reviews that speak to the importance and the power and value of networking on purpose. How did you arrive at that as your core part of your core offerings in terms of networking on purpose?
And it's so funny. I didn't even realize that networking was going to be a part of my core offering. So it really just happened organically.
Okay.
I had clients who I was coaching. And when I asked about their network, what are they doing to grow their network? How are they leaning into their network?
Yes.
The responses I would get back was, hey, I don't network, or networking is a waste of time. I'm not good at small talk. It's hard to do this
Oh,
thing. I don't have anything in common. So I had a bunch of excuses.
yes.
And I found a lot of success in networking, and everyone said, well, Erika, you like to talk. That's that's why you're good at networking.
Absolutely.
And I'm like,
Absolutely.
that's not it. And I wanted to create a space for my clients, a safe place for my clients to be able to connect, to network, and just show up as who they are and not their job title. Because
Yeah.
we go to networking events, especially when we were in person, it was take your business card, get your phone out, connect on LinkedIn. That was the
Yes.
thing, right? And
Absolutely.
I wanted people to be able to introduce themselves and connect genuinely off of who they are. We
Yeah.
can get to what I do for a living, but let's first connect off of just who I am. And when I ask that question, people are like, who am I? So
Yes. It's
it's
like when you
really
tell them that,
taking
it's
that
like
time.
when you say, it's like when you say, I'm sorry, it's like when you say, tell me about yourself in the interview and everybody goes blank, right? Everybody's
Right.
like,
Everyone's like, good question.
yeah, I don't know me.
Right.
Come
And
on.
so take the time to know you, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And really just tell people who you are. And then ultimately with networking on purpose, when I created this event, it's networking on purpose. So the intentionality of networking, having the authentic conversations,
Yes.
but then for a purpose. So every month I have a different topic and a different nonprofit that I honor each
Mm,
month with
okay.
a panel. And so the panel will speak on the topic, will honor the nonprofit, and Networking on Purpose is now a year old. I ended up going virtual in May, of course, due to, again, Rona just changing everybody's life up. And so, and I was very, very hesitant and curious as to whether or not I was going to be able to keep the energy, keep the vibe, keep
Okay.
the experience that people were, walking away with. And so, luckily, the feedback that I've gotten so far has been good, and people have been walking away like, you know what, this is really dope. I'm gonna come back.
Nice.
So, I was very excited about that, and then I realized that my talents and my strengths as it relates to me being a relator, me being a connector,
Yes.
it allowed me to really be able to show everyone how to build authentic and new relationships so that they
Yes.
don't feel so forced or cheesy, and knowing how that importance in its piece, because I can be very technical minded
Mm,
in my profession,
okay.
um, and connecting with technical minded professionals was really easy to me because I just understood it.
Right.
My undergrad degree is in accounting, so I can be very analytical, and so helping technical leaders become people leaders, that transition in itself was where I
Yeah.
realized the importance of that relationship building piece and
Right.
getting people to really stand in their truth and just lead in authenticity. So that is how networking on purpose kind of came about and how it became a part of kind of my offerings.
Yeah. Yeah. It becomes you have to be bilingual, right? Because to that space, you have to those people that are technical and don't have the people skills, you have to teach them how to relate in a way where they can connect the dots without them knowing that they're connecting the dots, right?
Yes,
It's a special skill. So I will say
it
kudos.
is.
But there's the reason that I love the networking on purpose is because we're similar, but there's always been this misconception. I have a background in network marketing too, where we have this misconception that networking has to be immediate. It has to have an immediate result. It has to have immediate, 90-day turnaround for it to be purposeful. And I think that it's important, like you said, to show people how to connect the dots, right? And that you can have a person to person connection where nothing may come of it right now, but 6, 8, 9, 12 months later, you remember because you have that connection, because you guys talk more than just at the event. Now you can put something together and run with it.
Yeah, yeah. And it's easier to ask because
Yes.
networking, we all know networking, yes, it's a transaction. That's the
Yeah.
technical piece of networking is, hey, I'm going to this networking event. I need to find a job. I need to find a mentor. I need
Right.
something. So I'm going to go get, right?
Absolutely.
And the element that isn't taught that I'm trying to educate people on is that, yes, that is networking, but there's also a component where you go to give. So your give must
Yes.
always be bigger than your ask, always. So when you are introducing yourself, what I coach my
Yeah.
people on is, hey, when you're sharing who you are and you're saying, these are my talents, these are my strengths, this is what I love. When you're
Right.
sharing that, saying, hey, if you need help with that, let me know. If there's someone in your network that I could help with this, let me know. I'll be more than happy to help them. That opens
Absolutely.
up the door for that conversation. And it opens up the door for something that you're naturally talented in, something that you just love, something that you're passionate about. So that is something that's going to fulfill you, whether it is something work related or not. So that is
Yes.
something that you just really, really need to keep in mind when you are introducing yourself, making sure that whatever you're going to network for, making sure that you're coming with a bigger give.
Love it. I love it. And for that, people have to understand the value that they bring to the table, right? And even in your time of need, let's say you need a new job, let's say you need a mentor or whatever the case is, you still have a very special set of skills or talents that you can bring to your point, and you can offer and say, hey, that's something that I can do, or I know somebody that can help you with that. And maybe it's a no charge type of thing, maybe it's a lunch or something like that. But I think that the more people learn to give, the more things open up on the back end. And I know this is a whole nother conversation, but that's why you see the rich and wealthy have such huge philanthropic enterprises, right? Is because not only is it a tax write-off, because we know that part,
It's a good
but
tax write-off.
yeah,
Right. Let's
it's
just address
absolute,
that first.
very much so, right? We know it's the tax write-off, but I think it also allows them to be in the room when projects come up, right?
Mhm.
And so they're the first call when somebody has a new initiative or has a new thing that they want to launch. They're in the room because they were there to give 10, 20 grand, at the speech and talk. So I think that it's important that people remember the value that they bring to the table.
Yeah.
Now, I we could not have this conversation. You know where I'm going with this. That's why you're smiling.
Yeah, I'm all like, oh boy.
The ship navigation, the self-awareness, honoring your values, identifying your tribe, and protecting your peace. I want to spend some time here so that you can break down how these acronyms A help your clients, and B how you've used them to build your business.
Wow. How much time we got?
Listen, run it, run it. The camera is yours.
Okay, so SHIP, the acronym SHIP derives from the word leadership. So when it comes to, again, I said I'm passionate about leadership development. So
Yes.
I created an acronym and an iceberg kind of leadership motto for leaders. And
Okay.
it started out with first time leaders
Mm,
because, and one of my past positions, I was given the opportunity to lead the cause in the region for our leadership development program.
okay.
And it started out in the state and then it went out to the region because of the level of impact that it had, the success rate we were seeing, and
Right.
it was incorporated in our succession planning.
Okay.
So when I was saying I was operating in my passion and in my groove, I was like really excited. So then I started to identify what are the key components of leadership that we don't talk about, that
Mm,
especially first time leaders are always trumped over and
yes.
have the biggest issues in. And so it started like again with first time leaders. So when I did the leadership iceberg model, you've seen the iceberg models where you see like on top, this is the success and I'm doing so great. And then your
Yes.
middle part is just like, I went to college and, I've worked hard. And then the bottom is the blood, sweat, and tears. Don't nobody
Right.
see. And
Right.
so
Yes.
I kind of mirrored that model. And at
Okay.
up top is lead, LEAD. And that is language of the team, earning trust, advocating for all, and documentation. That's the
Mm,
aspect that everybody see, everybody expects of a
love
leader.
it.
So I break that component down.
Okay.
That middle portion that people kind of see, kind of don't see, the E stands for ego or empathy. The R stands for respect and relationship. So unpacking all of that, because that
Mm,
is fully loaded.
yes.
And then
Yes.
the bottom portion, that portion that don't nobody see, don't nobody talk about, that's where SHIP comes from. And I
Okay.
feel that SHIP is really the prerequisite for leadership. So
Okay.
everyone really needs to ensure that they are solid when it comes to their self-awareness and self-discipline, honoring their values, identifying their tribe, and protecting their peace.
Yes.
Those four things not only have benefited me personally, but I've been able to share that and help others as well. And so for self-awareness and self-discipline, really quick, when it comes to being a leader, there are going to be times you're going to be, period, not
Right.
because of who you are, just because of the role you're in.
Yes.
So you have to be grounded in who you know, or who you are, I'm sorry, and who you are not. You have to make that clear.
Right.
There is no gray area on who you are and who you are not. So you have to become very clear on that. And then once you identify who you are and who you are not, you have to now operate in that truth.
Yes.
And that's where the discipline comes from. So sometimes it's going to be saying no. Sometimes that is, I'm going to block my calendar. Sometimes that's going to say, hey, I know at the core of who I am, I'm a giver, and I
Mm,
need to ensure that I invest this time in my people. Whatever it may be, you have to now be disciplined in doing that and staying committed and honoring yourself with that. Then
yes.
the second piece of honoring your values, most people don't even know what they value when
I was
it
gonna
comes
say.
when it comes to like
Yes.
themselves. They like, I mean, I honor my family, money, like
Right. Right.
you get all of these things. I'm like,
The
well, what
surface
is it?
level.
Yeah, like very surface level. So
Yes.
taking it deeper. So that's where when you see my values of the mutual respect, grace, integrity, like all of those things matter to Erika as an individual. So when I'm building a business, the business that's me, it must be ingrained in my business.
Right.
So for leaders, for professionals, what is it that you value? And how can you put yourself in a position where you're not compromising your values? So I do start with people who say, like, my family is most important. I
Right.
value my family. So then my job as your coach is to ensure that you are always honoring your values. So
Mm,
when you're at work and something comes up at work and it's taking up your time, your family time,
yes.
is this, how are you going to honor your values? How are you going to stay committed to the responsibility of your job as a leader, to the organization,
Mm,
but also honor the value of your family in what you're contributing to your family. So
Yes.
it's a really big challenge. It's not easy at all. Like, I won't even front and try to pretend that this type of work is work that you can easily come up with answers and you will
Right.
easily find the answer in 30 days. It's not going to happen.
Doesn't work like that. Yeah.
It doesn't work like
Yeah.
that at all.
I
I
before you
explained
jump on those
earlier.
other two, before you jump on those other two, real
Yeah.
quick, I think the honoring that split time, right? Because we talked about earlier where there's no such thing as work-life balance. Paul Bronson a while back taught me. He's been a guest on the show as well, but he taught me a while back that communication around honoring your time for your family is when you say, "Hey, this is a really hectic week." Like, you have to be, to your point, self-aware. This is a hectic week. This is a hectic month. This is a hectic day. So today, Daddy's gone. Erica's gone. This weekend, we'll do whatever you want to do. But today, tomorrow, Friday, you
Yep.
might see me twice, right? So
Yep.
really quickly before we jump on those other the rest of the ship, um, how important has communication been to you in navigating the entrepreneur side to the rest of your kids and the rest of the family?
It's been a challenge because for my kids, they've seen mommy get ready for work every day
Yeah.
and leave the house, when we were just
Yes.
prior to COVID,
When we got to
leave
leave.
the house and, go to work. Then they
Yeah.
see us all come home, they're at home, and it's like, what is mommy doing?
Right.
And mommy's trying to build a business. And so it's really, the dynamics are really different. So communicating to my children what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, who I'm doing it for, like all of those things, communication could not be more important right now, especially in my household. And I know for many of my clients, and I'm sure everybody, communication has been stretched for sure, because
Yes.
before, it's like going to work and you're figuring out your schedule and your calendar at work, knowing what your calendar is at home. And now
Yes.
everything's at home, everything.
Everything's
So
I was
you're
telling my wife,
communicating to
like,
everybody, like, all
we don't
right,
even.
you over there this time. And
Yes. Yeah, we don't even
so
have that
that's,
that commute decompression time anymore,
no,
right?
I used to
Like,
love that I
oh
needed
my
that.
God. Favorite part of the day was driving home, knowing that I would be in traffic for an hour and a half, just so that I could. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. Me and Rick
Yeah,
Ross, me and Rick Ross
there you
or John
go.
Legend, we would just, kind of work it
Yep.
out.
Yep.
Um,
I'll be in the car hitting all types of runs and ad libs. Like that was all I needed to just
Beyonce
whew.
time. I love it. I love it. Okay, let's go back to the rest of the ship. We are at
Yes.
identifying your
Identify your
tribe.
tribe. So identify your tribe. And I kind of spoke on that earlier with networking on purpose,
Yes.
because that's what really networking on purpose was birthed from. And identifying your tribe is really important. I don't want to confuse people on what I mean by identify your tribe. Most people think like you need a community. You need a community of people
Yes.
around you, supporting you, etc. And I look at those things as two different things. A community and a tribe are different.
Okay.
Um, but I feel that your tribe can truly come from your community. So it's important to build your community of people, but your
Yeah.
tribe are people whose values are aligned with yours. People in your community, they may have different values, but they're still in your community because there's something in common. There's something
Mm,
on why you all are connected in the first place.
right.
But people in your tribe are people you're going to lean on most likely for a lifetime. So these
Love
aren't
it.
people that are going to just come and go.
Yes.
And your tribe needs to be a diverse tribe. You need to have
Mm,
people who just entered the workforce or about to leave the workforce. You need people who you need men, you need women. It needs to be really diverse. You need people who, like for me, I have an HR background, but I had engineers in my network or in my
okay.
tribe. So you want to diversify it. And the main point of that is that whenever you want to make a move, make a decision that you know is going to significantly impact or influence the trajectory of your career, you want to make sure you have some sound people there giving you advice that's
Yes.
going to help you, not
Mm,
make you feel good, but really is going to help you and help
love
you
it.
consider things from a different lens that you probably would have never imagined before. So that's the whole point of really your tribe and identifying your tribe. And it comes from your community. So you still want to have these people in your community. They need,
Yes.
so you got to pick them from somewhere, right?
So you
So
got
your
to pick them from
community is just,
somewhere.
yeah, they're just a larger group. But
Yeah.
yet, again, you don't call everybody and say like, hey, I'm about to get fired. You don't call everybody in your community
Right.
and say that. But your
Never.
tribe, you're like,
Never.
hey, I need to talk to you.
What had happened was,
Right. So it's those sort of conversations, and that
mm,
sort of connection you want to have with your tribe, versus your community. But again,
yeah,
your community can still be just as impactful, and it should be, because again, your members of your tribe come from there.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Chasing a dream, chasing and building a business are often, we see the catchphrases on social media, right? Where, start your LLC and build a business, and you can do all these things. And if you're not careful, if you're a first time entrepreneur, if you're chasing your dreams seriously for the first time, it can be daunting. It can be stressful. It can be hard to manage the emotions of the process. Talk about protecting your peace and how you remind your clients to do so.
So here's what I'll just first start out with: how I protect my peace.
Let's go.
I protect my peace by not engaging on social media as much. I know it is valuable from a business standpoint to engage on social
Yes.
media. However, I don't go on the deep end. And before I started my business, I also wasn't on social media like actively like
Sure.
that. But that is how I protect my peace,
Hmm.
because over time, since social media has become so big and such a part of our
Yeah.
lives in such a way where people feel the need to say, I'm hungry, let me post that.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
you know what I mean? And then it
Why?
became this facade that everyone would show the world.
Right.
Um, and there are so many people that wasn't showing their truth, and people that had the Twitter fingers and not really speaking truth. And I remember when Twitter became so big, and I remember having a conversation with someone, and they were saying like, well, the truth hurts and people don't want to hear the truth. And in my mind, I'm thinking, I was like, it's not really that people are afraid or don't want to hear truth and honesty. They do. The problem is that the person is trying to give this supposed honesty and truth is that it's filled with malicious intent, ill intent.
Right.
That is what people don't like. And
Right.
so, yes, it's hard to hear truth that isn't really filled with love and compassion and
Mm.
honesty. Like, if it doesn't have that, I don't really, is this really the truth? Like, you
Right.
know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
Right.
why? Because there's no reason on why you cannot give the truth without being nasty, without being
Yes.
negative. And yet, the Twitter fingers, people were able to do that in 140 characters.
Right.
So over time, for me, it started with social media in terms of protecting my peace.
Okay.
So in terms of advising my clients on protecting their peace, identifying the areas in which they have set boundaries, and then identifying areas where they need to set boundaries.
Mm.
And oftentimes it's easier to identify areas where they need to say no
Okay.
versus the areas where they actually set boundaries, which is really weird. Because sometimes you could just automatically, oh no, I'm not for this. I know for a fact this is a no.
Right.
And some people are able to come up with maybe a good 2 or 3. But then when you start talking about all the things that matter to you and so many things that conflict those things,
Yes.
it's like, well, what matters to you? What's okay and what's not okay? Brene Brown said it so good. She said, boundaries is simply saying what's okay for you and what's not okay for you.
Yeah.
And when you
Yeah.
take that, definition, you're like, okay, what's okay for me? What's not okay for me? And when you look at work and people are like, well, if that's the case, I need to quit. And I was like, wait a minute.
No
Like, work
rash
is not okay.
decisions. Right, right. We don't want you quitting your job because listen to the Hawk Vision podcast and
No,
coming back
that's not
saying, well,
it.
Chuck said, and Erika said, no, no, no. We didn't say fumble the bag.
No,
We just said, be aware.
you have to be aware. So it's really being able to be grounded and communicate what your needs are,
Hmm.
and being able to say, if I cannot get these needs, and this is not just for work, this is for all of your relationships in life.
Yes.
When you are communicating a boundary, saying like, hey, this isn't okay with me and this is why. If this continues, here's what I'm going to do, because you can't control everybody else. So
Right.
whether that I'm going to leave the room, whether that is I'm not going to have my camera on, or
Right.
whatever it needs to be, so that you are at peace,
Yeah.
because you've already stated your case on what doesn't work for you. And if they still choose to engage in a way that messes with that boundary, then you now take action for yourself.
Yeah.
So setting boundaries and being able to, say no to those things, and then being mindful. Mindfulness is impactful, and being present, because because I don't talk a work-life balance, it's very
Yes.
hard to be present in so many different areas of your life. So how
Absolutely.
do you ground yourself when you're like,
Absolutely.
okay, this is my life, but I got 7 different things going on?
Yeah.
And how do you find peace in operating in so many different areas? So that's where, many people talk about mindfulness and meditation and grounding yourself. And then it's organization. So there's so many, it depends on the person, but those are the key elements for really protecting your peace and taking the steps of what's okay for you and not okay for you.
Absolutely. I had a mentor, Edwin Haynes, that told me it's about being honest with yourself enough to know what your non-negotiables are.
Mm.
Right. And when you know what your non-negotiables are, it's easy to recognize them so that you can put a stop to them as soon as they, show
So much
themselves.
they come.
You- Absolutely. Absolutely. That's hard. And I think a lot of people would do themselves a lot of good if they took the time to say, what are my non-negotiables? And that helps to mold, the discipline of managing your time. Look at me, I'm talking to myself right now. Time management is not my favorite thing, but I do know what my non-negotiables are, right? So there are things that
Yeah.
I don't spend a lot of time on. I have a house with all daughters. I do not watch reality TV. It's like I can't. I don't want to know. I don't care. I don't do celebrity nothing. It's not my thing because I know that it spirals off into a conversation that doesn't help me lead this house. You know what I mean? And
Hmm.
so for me, though, that's one of the areas where I can quickly identify and tell people this is a non-negotiable for me, right? We're
Yeah.
not watching this. I'm not watching this. Y'all do your thing. I'm not watching this.
That's
But
just
to
not
your
me.
point, it's
Hmm.
just not me, right? And so to your point, whether it's corporate or entrepreneurship, you can have that discovery call with a client or with a business partner and say, you know what? This is not me, right? This is
Hmm.
not going to work. And I think that we need to do
And I've
that
had
more.
quite a few of those.
I love it. I love it. Um, have you noticed a key difference? And we're getting close to wrapping up, but have you noticed a key difference when you train HR professionals versus when you work with your private clients in terms of what they tend to need or what they tend to actually want from you?
Um, yes and no.
Okay.
Because I try my best to make sure that, whether this is a consulting client and they're looking for some support for, let's just say, I had a client that was trying to really re-engage their workforce in a
Okay.
way where they tried to change the culture, wanted to change some of their key success factors. So they wanted my support in that change management.
Yes.
And with that, and then if you take a client that I'm coaching, and let's just say it's an HR leader, um, when I look at both of them, I try my best to approach it where they already know that everything that I'm going to be doing, it comes from a place of authenticity, humility, and action.
Yes.
So
Yes.
whether it's coaching or consulting with the Erika Monae group, that is the approach and the foundation of what we do. Is what if what I'm giving you, is it going to make the workplace a more fair and healthier workplace? And it really starts from the inside out. So if whatever I'm doing, whether it's a process in the organization, is this process going to positively impact or transform individuals from the inside out, so that in the organization, that is what you see. You see that change that you wanted as an end result. In coaching, it's a bit easier because you're working one-on-one with people and you can see that transformation over time. But in
Absolutely.
organizations, it takes a bit more time because the organization has to be ready for change, regardless of what type of change. The
Right.
organization has to be ready for change, and that's really the starting point. So when I work with people, my goal is for that to kind of come across, and I try
Mhm.
my best to make sure that that's where I'm coming from. That's my end game. And if in fact that doesn't work for them, or that's just not aligned with the objectives that they have for that particular project, role, etc., then I would say, like, maybe you should probably do this instead. And
Mm.
then I'll give them a different alternative or solution,
Yes.
whether it's me or not. Just try to give them a different alternative or solution to really stay grounded in who I am. Because if I kind of go away from that, then I lose myself, and then I'm like, what am I doing? And then
Yeah.
so then I'm reflecting again, and I'll be sitting in the chair thinking, like, why did I do this?
Yeah.
Why am I
Yeah.
here?
And then your peace
And
is disturbed.
yeah, so right, because now I'm trying to figure stuff out. So so, and that's a whole process that I can, eliminate by just operating in my truth. If I stand in my truth, I will always be in the right place.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. It switching gears just slightly, in the structural part of launching your business, what would you say is the hardest part? Was it building out your offerings and your coaching plans? Was it securing a platform, a template? What was the hardest part? Was it, launching, securing the business name, the EIN? What was the part that you were just like, I should have outsourced this?
Honestly, two pieces.
Okay.
For me, it's really, and they're related. It's really the social media management. So because your girl wasn't on social media like that, when it was time for
Yes.
me to be on social media, I'm like, oh man, what do I do next?
Yes. Yes.
So yes, I would love to hire someone to manage my social media in that way. And then two, the marketing, the sales and marketing piece. Because in my world, I didn't talk about a sales funnel. That
Right.
just
Right.
wasn't a part of my day to day.
Yeah. That's not an HR thing.
It's not an HR thing, right? Can I catch the concepts? Absolutely. I have a business acumen, so it wasn't hard to necessarily gravitate towards it once it was time for me to get into it.
Sure.
But in terms of it being my jelly and my thing,
Not so much.
no, not so much. Because what I did learn about myself is that, yes, I knew going into entrepreneurship, you wear all the hats, right?
Yes.
I knew that, and I was willing to step into that and grind and work hard. Still doing that. But what I realized is that I am more of a visionary, which means for
Let's
me is
go.
that I have the vision, I can articulate it, I can tell you, from A to Z what it needs to look like, the whole
Yes.
nine. I can even strategize with you to a limit. And when I get to that
To
limit,
a part.
I'm looking at somebody else like, I need somebody else to
Right. Pick this up.
strategize the rest of
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. Pick this. I gave it to you.
And
Now
so
pick
when
it
I
up.
realized that, I'm like, okay, because the Erika Monae group, hopefully I can be blessed to be able to get a team and employ
Yes.
some people and be a part of Team EMG.
Love it.
And so I'm going to be very intentional in making sure that people who are higher in strengths that I am
Mhm.
lower in, that I am
Yes.
definitely going to be bringing them on the team. Um,
I
because
love it. I
the
love it.
strategy piece, like, again, I'm good at giving you the vision, telling you how I want it to look, boom, boom, boom. But I feel
Yes.
like I could do a better job of streamlining the time that I
Yeah.
put in creating, all the stuff that I create. So when people say, "Oh, you're doing a good job," I'm like, no.
Like I've lost 17 pieces of hair this week. It's funny that you mentioned that. I have another guest on. Her name is Bianca Tatum, rock star social media strategist. So I'm gonna make sure you two connect. And then we already talked about Kashira, the coach as well. Like she
Yeah.
is amazing. I may have a couple of people that I can recommend to you because from what I've seen so far, I know that this is just the beginning, and the Erika Monet group is going to be an absolute force to be reckoned with
Thank you.
because you operate in your zone. And what I love the most about your last answer is that it led me to my next question so easily. When you think of the word vision, what does it mean to you, and how has it fueled your success and your processes so far?
Vision. Wow. So what does vision mean to me? Very, very good question. For me, vision really means the outlook on life, on whatever it may be, but it's an outlook that is continuous and ongoing, that still needs to be tweaked or still needs to have some sort of support or maybe be polished, but it's an ongoing vision to achieve success. And success for me is really helping people.
Yeah.
And I know that may sound cliche, but we need help.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So, and there's so many areas in where we need help. And I've been fortunate to know that my purpose is within the workforce. The area, that's my area.
Yeah.
That's my lane. And however I can help people in this area is what I'm down for. So for me, vision is just an ongoing outlook on your goals. It's never ending. It's not like, oh, I reached it and I'm good, but it can always be stretched. So it's an ongoing thing for me. It's continuous.
Love it. I love it. What does Erika do to strengthen her belief systems in terms of personal growth, in terms of industry knowledge? What are some of the things that you do to stay an apex predator in this game?
Um, for me, personally, I'm trying to laugh through in my head what you just said.
Right, right.
Um,
I know what you're thinking. She's like, I'm too cute and cuddly to be an apex predator, but I get it. I get it. But you know what I mean.
yes, I do. I do. So for me, it's prayer for one, staying in tune to my faith. I am a woman of faith.
Yes.
So really that helps ground me and keep me focused,
Okay.
especially being in a place of gratitude. That for sure, as you know, and that's honestly where I get my grace from, because
Nice.
I know the grace that has been given to me, um, and the forgiveness that has been given to me.
Yeah.
And so, in order for me to operate as a woman of faith, how dare I feel, to act as if that is something that I can withhold from other people.
Mm,
Um,
that's strong.
but that's just like my own personal kind of
Yeah.
belief or outlook on that. So that's where, and it ain't easy. I'm gonna tell you that. But so I may share this as if it was something that's so nice and sweet,
Yes.
and easy to do. It is the hardest thing to do because I am a human being, and yes,
Yeah.
I do not want to talk to people who are just nasty. I just don't want to do nothing with
Right.
you. So I do want to be nasty back, but I just don't have it in me. I have friends that are I have friends that are
You
petty,
outsource the
and I
nasty.
want to be petty too. And God didn't give me the petty bone. He just put everybody in my life that's just like, oh no, they got the petty bone. And
That's
so
funny.
I look at them and be like, I want to be just like you. So, but anyway, that's what keeps me grounded is my faith. But also I do a lot of reading.
Mm.
I am low key a nerd. Um, I am. And it's really, it started with, school, just HR stuff, stuff that
Yeah.
I liked about HR and all that stuff. So it began there. And then it went into, when I, go on your own journey of just finding out who you are and digging deeper in your life. When you get to that point in your life and you just want to learn more, you
Yeah.
then gravitate to all these different books that's about whether it's professional development, leadership, womanhood, like all types of stuff. And I begin to see the dots in all these books. And so when I speak, people are like, how do you know that? And I'm like,
Right.
how did I know that? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. It
so
sinks
it's just a
in.
combination of just experience and knowledge and exposure. So those are the things that keep me grounded, just making sure I keep my ear to the ground and reading and being connected with people. Even though I can't, hug on people like I used to,
Yes.
it's still good to just be able to have, a webcam to talk to
Right.
people and to
Right.
see them. And I've been afforded to talk to people all over the country, even the world. I've had people join Networking on Purpose from Australia and Scotland, and it's just
Wow.
been amazing. So even though COVID has had a horrible, horrible name and impact on our lives, it
Man.
has opened up a few doors that
Yes.
allowed us to see some things and experience some things that we would have never experienced that are is pretty beautiful.
Absolutely. I tell people all the time, I think the one good thing from COVID, and I use that term loosely, is that it has completely shrunken the globe, right? It has made uh, everybody be able to travel virtually and expand that part of their network, if you do it purposefully, right? Like you say, and it's
Mhm.
allowed people to connect in a manner like we've never seen before. And I think that's part of, flipping how we look at things, right? So anybody that knows me knows I miss shaking hands and kissing babies, right? That's my thing. Like I'm like you. I love to, I'm a toucher, I'm a hugger, I'm the person that wants to be, in the room. Um, but with that being gone, I've been able to be fortunate, not only to just, watch businesses such as yours grow at exponential rates, and watch you killing it all over LinkedIn and some of these other avenues, but I've also been able to, grow myself, right? We like the reason that this podcast exists is to help people shorten the learning curve. And when we get to hear from rock stars like you, I think there's just evidence that we're doing the right thing. Um, Last couple of questions. What is your favorite part of entrepreneurship?
Ah, the the autonomy to do what I want to do.
I love it.
Simply put,
Yeah.
I'm like the best way I could put that. And I say that because even when I was in corporate America, um, the more responsibility you get, the higher level my business partners became, the more strategic my work became. I began to have more autonomy at work.
Okay.
And I never understood why I needed to be at a certain level to have flexibility. But clearly,
Yeah.
COVID slapped employers in the face and said, now you got to be flexible anyway.
Right. Right.
So, whether you wanted to or not, now you got to
Now you
do it.
have to be.
You
Yeah.
got to do that now. But all in all, having that autonomy to make the decisions that I feel is best for me at the time I feel it is best for me, is a freedom that I can't really describe.
Yeah.
That I really, really enjoy. So it's not like, oh, I have the freedom to schedule stuff how I want, because then I feel that I'm lacking discipline and I'm not productive.
Yes.
So I try to stay away from like, oh, I'm just free and I can do whatever I want. I'm like, no, I have
Right.
to do something. Like my kids ask me all the time, so mommy, when are you done with work? I'm like, I'm never done with work, but I get to choose when I don't want to do it.
I love it. I love it. I
And so
love
I was
it.
like, but I get to choose and decide when exactly I'm going to stop and when I'm going to begin again. And so, and they're like, oh, and then the next day, when are you done with work?
Right. I haven't chosen yet. I have not chosen,
I have
but the
not chosen
power
the
is
time.
mine.
Yeah.
I
So,
love it. I love it. To that point, you have little ones watching you. How important is ownership and being able to teach them the power of having that choice, like you just spoke of?
um, and it's funny, as a parent, as you know, it's hard when you're trying to teach your child how to make great decisions in life,
Yes, because
especially
adults
with
have
their
it so
time.
figured out, right?
Right, got it all figured out. Um, so it is a challenge. It is. It's a challenge trying to teach them. And my son is 8. My daughter will be 12 next month.
Okay.
And so they are at the age where they are making decisions, especially my soon to be 12-year-old. And she's making decisions in middle school. And this,
Yeah.
middle school is a time where it's just like, I'm a mini adult. Like I get to go to class at the time that is scheduled here, and I make the decision to go to the class. Like
Right.
there's so many, like you own and control so much. So
Right.
just that avenue of like, you get to make the decision, but there's a lot of power and responsibility with that. So teaching the consequences of it, what I've learned as a parent is that sometimes the kids really just want to learn the hard way. Just let them learn the hard way. And as a parent, you're like, no, I want to
Right.
show you this so that I can shorten the learning curve so that you don't fall in this trap. And so
Yes.
they just want
Yes.
to fall in a trap. They just
They want
they
to
just want to
experience
learn
it.
the hard way.
Yes.
And so that's the challenge. But I think it puts me in a position where I just have to be consistent.
Mm,
So that's the thing, and there's beauty in it, and there's a lot of responsibility with it. But it's nothing to be afraid of. It's just the fact that you have this power to control your life and your time and making the right decisions. I always tell my kids that life is about relationships and decisions. At the end of the
yes.
day, everything is going to revolve around a relationship and a decision or both.
Mm,
So you have to make sure that your communication is on point. You have to make sure that you are taking accountability for things. And what does that look like when you're 8? Like, you know what I mean? So I'm, trying to just get them grounded in these things, because
yes.
I tell them like, I have to talk to people at work that don't know what accountability is. So I'm trying to teach you at 8. So you don't have to have this conversation in the
Right.
workforce
Right.
when you're in your 30s and 40s.
That's so funny.
So
Wow. You know that, and this could be a whole nother interview by itself, but I think that it's important that we like uh, relationships and decisions is the perfect way to say it. And now I think I even have another arsenal in the toolbox, because my thing, I tell my daughters all the time, you want to find the patterns in how people think and the patterns in how people ask you questions. Right. And right now my 9-year-old is doing word problems. And I'm like, the word problems are designed to trip you up because they give you too much information. And now I'm wondering, am I assisting her thought process in only listening to half of the information because she knows the other half is
she knows,
unimportant,
yeah, what
right?
to look
So
for. Hmm.
yeah, so now my daughters are two of them, two of the four are very analytical, and in terms of they're just trying to reduce it down to the logic, right? And I think that that's something that adults can do, more of, is reduce it down to the logic, take the emotions, whether it's 9 to 5, corporate, or your entrepreneurship, take the emotions out of the decision. Does
Yeah.
this make sense? Does this align with
Yep.
the goal that we have in mind? Um,
That's
as we wrap
awesome.
up,
That is so awesome.
thank you.
That
Thank
is,
you.
that is. Because I'm sitting here thinking about my daughter. So my daughter is more technical minded.
Okay.
And I think it's beautiful because she is learning and is capable of being able to operate in logic, but also recognize her emotions and feel her feelings.
Yeah.
And I think there's so much beauty in that, because when they become adults, and when your daughters become adults, they're going to be able to make very sound decisions
Yes.
that that's not coming from a place of weakness, coming from a place of just, I'm broken. It's this solid decision making.
Right.
And once you make that decision, now I'm about to go feel my feelings, I'll be back.
Right. Right. Absolutely.
So that's really
Absolutely.
good. And my son is different. He is like, what you say to
I
me? So
love it. I love it. No, I think it's important, right? Because we have to. I found in life, and in business, especially running my businesses, the most emotional decisions that I've made have cost me the most money,
mm,
right? And sometimes they've made me the most money as well. But I find that when you have this steady, this kind of steady thing, you make a decision quick based off of the logic, based off of doesn't align with your goals. Those are the ones that keep you on a trajectory where you can continue to be successful. So
yeah, and
that's
that's important in
definitely,
entrepreneurship for sure.
yeah. I would be remiss if I did not ask the Erika Monae visionary, the leader. Um, what did it feel like for the first check? When you got,
I got my first sale.
yeah, because you said, HR, we're mostly not sales driven, right? So when you got the first check, was it justification? How did it feel?
So this is funny. My business coach, I remember sharing with him that somebody signed up for something on my website and they purchased something from me. So they're going to, get some coaching, and he is excited. And I was
Yes.
like, and he's like, why aren't you excited?
Right.
Talk to me about this.
Yes, yes, help
and
me.
and so for me, it's when I got it was more along the lines of that's awesome, keep it going. I'm
Love it.
competitive, and I'm like I'm one of the secret competitors, whereas I'm not outwardly like you better win. I'm out here to win. Like I'm not like that, but it's more like I I'm about to win.
Yeah.
I'm not about to tell you how I'm gonna get there. I'm not about to go all through all of that.
Yes.
But I'm working to win. Like
I love it. I love it.
so for me, it's just like cool. I got one down. I really got like a million to go. So I
Yes.
got to keep going. So for me, that's what it was. I was happy, but it was
Yeah.
like for 15 seconds.
Yeah.
Then
No, I
nothing was
love that.
doing.
I love that. I love that as because most people feel like, the first sale, to the question was like that's their justification, but you already had, your core values where you knew it was going to work. So now it was just like, okay, I sold one, I did one, now I can do 100. Now I can do, 1,000. That's kind of the big picture that I was hoping you would answer, the kind of the way that you did. It was it's not only validation, but it's also step one,
Yeah,
right? Because once you make that sale, now you have to provide that value on the back end. Now you
yeah.
like that's when the work starts, right? Is
Hmm.
after the sale, especially when you're dealing with products that aren't digital, where they
Right,
can run at
right.
their own lift. Um, where can everybody find the Erika Monae group online?
Wow. I am on social media. So if you've been listening this whole time and you
Right.
heard my rant about my social media, I am on social media and I am engaged. So you can
That's so
find me
funny.
on LinkedIn, the Erika Monae group. I am Erika Monae on LinkedIn personally. Um, you can find me on Instagram, the Erika Monae
Yes.
group, Facebook, the Erika Monae group. And I'm also on Twitter, but my Twitter fingers, they are out of commission at the moment. Um, but it is the EMGRP. So
Gotcha.
the EMGRP. That
Awesome.
is my Twitter handle. I'm working on my YouTube channel, so I'm out there. It's just a work in progress. I told you this is
Yeah.
just not my area. This is my area of opportunity. So I am very, very okay with admitting that.
Yes.
Very okay with it. Someone wants to learn and develop that skill set with the Erika Monet Group, you can contact us at
Yes.
ericamonetgroup.com.
I love
Contact
it.
us at ericamonetgroup.com.
Emphasis on the contact us. I love it. I
Contact
love it.
us.
Um, Jesus, so many gems. I love that that you haven't allowed the parts that are areas of opportunities. I love that you have not allowed that to get in the way of your profits and growing your business. A lot of
Thank
people will
you.
say, until this is ready, I can't launch. And you are proof that you can, build the ship on the way after you've left shore, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I need a bigger sail. Okay, cool. Somebody jump up there and build that sail, but we're going here,
We're
and
still gonna keep it moving. Right.
we're gonna
Right.
keep it moving. I love that. I love it. I love it. Kudos to you. Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for carving out part of your day. I know that you are power packed over there, and you got the little ones. And so
Thank
I'm
you.
just eternally grateful, absolutely grateful for you jumping on.
I'm grateful that you reached out. I was able to make this podcast. I love, love, love what you're doing, and just even the concept of helping to make this learning curve shorter for people and entrepreneurs. Like it is, it's not for everybody, but for those that it's for, it's like I need help.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's real good to see what you're doing and the
Thank
impact that you're
you.
having. So whether or not but you do have a very significant and positive impact
Oh,
out here because I'm not in Cali, I'm in Michigan. So,
yes.
you have reach, definitely
Thank
have reach.
you. Yes. Well, listen, whenever outside does open up, we're gonna be on the stage together. It has to
I'm
happen.
coming to Cali. I'm gonna let you know that now. Like, I'm coming to Cali. And when I come, I'm gonna be like, hey, I'm
Yes,
coming.
absolutely. Say no more. Say no more. Like it has to happen. Ladies and gentlemen, you have been rocking with the Hawk Vision podcast. Erika Monet, the incomparable great one. I am Chuck Hawkins, your host. And listen, I want you to not only like, share, subscribe. Also visit the merchandise store. But more importantly, I want you to share this with other visionaries just like you. Thank you for tuning in, guys.